All right, we're set to go.
All right, awesome. Well, hello, welcome everyone. I'm Blaine Butler. I'm the Associate Director for Employer Engagement here at the Career Development Center. And just want to start off by saying thank you so much to our panelists for joining us today to talk about job searching during COVID-19 and for sharing your thoughts and your insights. I think it's fair to say that we're living in pretty uncertain times right now, and I think there's a lot of us feeling very anxious about the future, particularly as it relates to job searching. So hopefully, by the end of this, we can walk away feeling a little bit better about the future and hopefully have some sort of action steps of what we can do to move forward as it relates to jobs and sort of careers. To give a quick overview of how things will run, so we'll have about 30 to 40 minutes or so of moderated discussion, which would then be followed by another 20 to 30 minutes of question and answer. Because there is so many folks watching the panel right now, I think to streamline things, we're going to ask that you use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens. Submit your questions that way, and then one of our staff members is going to be monitoring the questions and sort of compiling them and grouping together similar questions, and then he'll read them off at the end for everyone to answer. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica Chance, who will be moderating and to introduce herself and the panelists.
Okay, well, hey everybody out there, and thank you to the panelists today. Yes, I'm working with Blaine also at the Career Development Center at my alma mater, Emerson College. Always got to plug that. And we really, it's an honor to work with alumni and employers who work throughout the year. And so to get their insights and their advice, especially around this time, is really important. And so I'm just going to do a quick intro of everybody that we have with us today. First, we have Nora Munson, class of 2014, who is a senior staff consultant at Beacon Hill Staffing. We have Shannon Chaplot, if I'm pronouncing your name right, Shannon, class of 2009. Great to see you again. You are senior managing consultant, also with Beacon Hill Staffing. Great to meet you in the flesh, Muna Moshien, also class of 2014, and is with CBS News as a manager of professional development. We also have with us Tyler Crow, a campus recruiting partner with one of our partner employers, Horizon Media. And finally, Paul Zitzer is talent acquisition partner also with Horizon Media. So thank you guys tremendously for being here today. I think I'm not the only one here that hears words like unprecedented, uncertainty, unemployment, surreal, hiring freezes, but we're also hearing, there is a silver lining, as the saying goes, this too shall pass. But there is a lot out there that I know is causing a lot of anxiety for new and current job seekers. And something I just want to plug to everyone is that this is advice that is, timely, but also timeless, and that, we hope to continue, sharing this advice after the pandemic. But of course, given our topic today, we'll go right into our questions. So the first one is, there's a lot out there, a lot of resources, a lot of things that we're hearing about in the media and updates and whatnot. What resources or people would you recommend job seekers follow online, or information that you see out there when they want to know who is still hiring? So, so what are your thoughts about that? And any of you guys can answer.
Start off. LinkedIn is one of my favorite professional development networking websites. For many reasons. You have the access to see people's resumes digitally. You can see where different people have worked, who they're connected to that you may know or that is in your specific group. When it comes to job postings, you are able to see how long a posting has been up. So for CBS specifically, there have been certain postings that have been posted for about a month or so that I'm working with our HR team now to take down because although we aren't using the term hiring freeze officially, we aren't really bringing any people in. So for job seekers, you know, that little nugget where it tells you this was posted 2 days ago or 2 months ago, you know, sort of gives you an insight into, okay, this is a recent posting, or
Yeah.
this looks like it's been up for some time. It doesn't look like it's, you know, a recent opening in the company. And then in some cases, it'll tell you if the recruiter that's hiring for that job is on LinkedIn. And so you can contact that person right then and there with just a click of a button. So I highly recommend LinkedIn for not just, you know, applying for jobs online, but for networking, which everyone should be taking advantage of right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you.
I'll second Muna. I love LinkedIn as a platform to kind of find jobs on and do networking on. And something I'll plug is doing more networking person to person, see what Emerson has available in terms of alumni events they're putting together, because that is the kind of stuff we can control right now, rather than knowing whether or not a job has been posted and is on freeze, or if it was just reposted automatically by a server. You know, those valuable person to person conversations are always going to be worth your time. And it might take a little bit longer, but it could definitely pay off in the future.
Great.
Yeah, I definitely think LinkedIn is a really good resource, but I also think that a lot of the publications that come out should definitely be read, like Ad Age, Adweek, Digiday, and all of the different publications. They're coming out with new information every single day on which agencies are on hiring pauses, who's rescinding offers, salary freezes, different things along those lines. So kind of digging a little bit deeper to see which holding companies or which privately held companies are doing what at this time may be able to help you kind of hone in on your job search.
Yeah, it does seem like a lot of that information is slowly emerging, you know, as things settle, it's like, okay, this is where everybody is at, you know, and getting that information. So yeah, thank you. Anyone else?
I would just add on to when reaching out on LinkedIn and networking, I would say be very intentional with your outreach. So specifically, if you know there's a company or industry that you're interested in working at, maybe connecting, utilizing LinkedIn on specific softwares and searching, hey, maybe this person was a graduate from Emerson and they work in this specific department, and being kind of doing your research beforehand before you reach out to the person to show that you're very serious and passionate about maybe entering this industry or role. Because I typically notice, especially for people starting off in their careers at the entry level, the ones who definitely are showing that enthusiasm and interest are definitely the ones who are kind of set up for success in the long run, because they're going into that outreach, specifically knowing the things that they want to talk about and are targeting, and kind of getting further insight to help them advance in their own specific careers. And I would say LinkedIn, again, as everyone mentioned, is definitely a useful tool if used correctly. So definitely take advantage of that in this time and do your research.
Great, great. Thanks, guys. Thank you. So the next question, hold on just a second. So you guys, I'm sure, look at a lot of different resumes, you know, looking at different candidates on a fairly regular basis. And until, you know, folks out there, you know, land a job, what are things that recent graduates and any job seekers can do in the coming months to keep building their resumes?
I think that, again, LinkedIn is going to be your biggest resource right now. For many people, they're offering free trials for their webinars and their different articles that they're surfacing. So if you guys could kind of build your brand, and Tyler and I talk about this in the presentation that we give, just right now is the time to build out your brand, make sure your resume is up to date, make sure your LinkedIn is up to date, and expand on any skills that you have, especially within the media field. We look at the entry level, we look for someone who has an experience or an interest in Microsoft Excel. So going on YouTube or getting those certifications or taking webinar classes and things like that, it's going to help you in the long run. I think everyone as a recruiter here, when we start to open up roles again, or even next year when we start to look at candidates who are graduating next year who didn't have an internship, we all know what happened. So the question may be, how did you use that time to better improve like your skills or something along those lines? Because we're all in the same boat right now.
Yeah.
But just kind of understanding that now is the time to take advantage of the free webinar classes. I know a lot of the Ivies have free coursework that they're offering. So there's a bunch of different resources that are out there. It's just kind of taking advantage of that and being able to speak to that when the time comes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I totally agree. Hope you guys can hear me, by the way. I just logged on and
There you are.
I was like having technical difficulties, so I'm like super like, can everyone hear me? Is anyone
Oh, no,
alive
you're
out there?
fine.
Just to piggyback off of what he just said, that, I mean, that's absolutely great advice. I think I work in the temp space, so I'm constantly working with candidates, and Nora is as well, who are maybe looking for a 3-month position throughout the summer, or on a 1-month break when they're on winter break, or just part-time while they're still in school. I think I love it when I meet candidates and they're at the end of their school year and they're like, hey, I have a whole summer in front of me. I just want to stay busy and I just want to work. And I think that just goes so far to show their stellar attitude. I also love it when people have really like a lot of flexibility. Like their dream job may be in a certain field, but they're like, listen, I really want to build some new skills. I want to network. I just want to showcase myself. And I think that's a really good thing that you can do. And it really goes a lot to show for your character as well.
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more with what Paul and Shannon said. Sometimes when you're in school, especially your senior year, things are moving so quickly. And, a lot of students don't really have the time to just pause for a moment and really think about what they want their next steps in their career to be. What do they see themselves doing long term? You may have been majoring in something specific for all 4 years, but come graduation, you may want to, check out another career, or like Paul said, learn a new skill set. So definitely take advantage of all of the online courses that are being made accessible to everybody right now that's at home, but also just take time for yourself and really think about, what am I passionate about? What can I see myself doing long term? And, this is where your networking skills come in, and you reach out to different people that are doing things in the fields that you are curious about. You want to know more about it, and ask them, what is their day-to-day like? What do they love about their job? And is this the role that they always saw themselves in? What do they want to do long-term? What are their goals? And I think having those conversations with people will really help you figure out, okay, you know what? I really like what X person said. I can see myself doing that. Or I don't like what this person said their day-to-day looks like. I don't want to do that. So just really take that time and try and figure out, and ask yourself, take out a pen and paper, write down, what am I passionate about? What do I want to spend all of my energy in my next couple of years on? Because this is the work that, no one can teach you how to do, and no one's going to sit down with you and do it. You have to sort of invest in yourself in this way and put energy into figuring out what it is that you want to do.
Yeah. No, this is great, guys. Thanks. I mean, I think that, I guess I should say a quick shout out to class of 2020, because it's been a lot to process. It's like you said, there's 4 years, and 4 years of an Emerson education is so focused, and there's so much that students are doing. And so this really is a time to not only sort of, like you said, really, chill out, pause, still congratulate yourself, but at the same time to say, okay, well, how can I expand my thinking? All of you guys are really talking about the fact that, okay, what can I do right now? How can I stay busy? How can I keep learning? And kind of the blessing in disguise is that it can end up, turning into a job that they didn't even think about when they were students, and so that's a plus too. So yeah, great. Thanks so much, guys. Loving this wisdom. Okay, so the third question, actually it's a good segue to what you guys were mentioning, Nora and Shannon, specifically for you guys. Can you talk about what a staffing agency is and how you work with employers? And then, for Muna, Tyler, and Paul, tell us a little bit about your experience working with staffing agencies. But we'll start with Nora and Shannon.
So as a staffing agency, we actually partner with hundreds of clients on their open positions. Beacon Hill specifically has offices all over the country. And so we partner with different clients all over the country in various industries to fill their open positions. So basically, as a recruiter, it's my job to figure out how we can best support your job search and introduce you to companies you might not otherwise have the chance to meet with or be exposed to, or as Shannon was mentioning, perhaps do a temp job at as a way to gain some clarity on your job search.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess just to kind of go off that, I like to think of us kind of as matchmakers. So we're consultative on both ends. We have a team that operates with clients to sort of figure out their needs, whether it's a 50-person project or just that one high-level executive assistant. So there's the sales end, and then Nora and I both work on the recruiting side. So we're doing that same consultative approach with candidates and figuring out all of their unique interests, talents, skills, and how we can best serve them and sort of pair the perfect two ends together. And yeah, that's always kind of the best way I've thought about it as.
Yeah, I like what you said about the matchmaking, because I remember, temping was some things that I was doing when I was coming out of school. And so, getting the chance to talk about, oh, this is a place I'd be interested in working at, and getting really good experience from that. So
yeah, I kind of think of it like dating, right? Like we're finding a job, dating. There's a lot of commonalities there.
Very true. Very true. So I guess Tyler, Paul, just some thoughts that you guys have about if you've worked with any staffing agencies before, even from your experiences or in your roles now.
Yeah, so I kind of have a unique background. I came from a staffing agency into Horizon Media, so I worked there for almost 2 years. So it was a really great experience, similar to what Nora and Shannon were saying, total matchmaking job. And I worked more on the creative side of things. So I was a creative recruiter for contract employees and full-time employees. So it's a really great resource, and third-party recruiters, they sometimes get a bad rep, and it's so not true. Where like they are actually working for you, sometimes for free. So when you're submitting your resume to a recruiter and they're getting it to this company that your resume would have otherwise sat in a pool of hundreds of thousands of resumes, and they're doing it for free. So it's a unique experience, and a lot of people don't really understand what staffing agencies do. So it's great to get the name and the industry out there. Transitioning over to like more agency internal recruiting it's a lot different because you're so focused on one specific department or one specific level. So I had to kind of get used to that, and then outside of the creative world. So definitely utilize recruiters. They're there for you. They have a bunch of different contacts, so it's really great.
Yeah, I think Paul definitely kind of touched on like Horizon as an independent agency. So we do utilize staffing and agencies to help us find like temp hires sometimes, but that's mostly at the kind of mid-level and junior level roles. But specifically for the niche area that Paul and I recruit for entry level, we try to like find external talent and internal talent through like referrals and things like that. So definitely networking is key there, because a lot of our entry level candidates come in through referrals, through like, other people in the agency and other friends of friends, and just connections and info sessions that they've been at that told them about like, the role of the media agency, and they always want to find out more, and they reach out to one of us, we kind of talk them through the process and get them familiar with the work that we do in that space.
So really what it is too is all roads go back to networking. What you're saying, it's like those referrals, those connections. And then too, I think with temping, students are not only getting good professional experience, but I think employers out there also learn about, what an Emersonian can do, in terms of the, the creative needs that need to get filled, even if it's just for a few weeks or a few months. And that networking is huge. They get to meet different types of people. So yeah. Definitely. Okay, so obviously right now we know that things have changed, and so the job that someone might have envisioned before, we'll say pre-pandemic, it's changed a little bit. However, Emerson alumni have skills that definitely reflect creativity, being innovative, and we talk a lot about transferable skills and thinking about where those skills can be used in different jobs all across the board. And so can you provide us with examples of how job candidates have really marketed their transferable skills successfully? Just that nice brand that they've shared with you.
Yeah, I can start us off on this one. So I think I'll touch back to what Muna was saying a little bit earlier. During this time, it's definitely time to get clear about what you're looking for, who you want to be introduced to, where you want to grow your connections, where you want to grow your skill set, and following the path that leads to those ultimate goals. So getting really clear on the end result and then taking steps to get there. And during this time, that's kind of the perfect time to do it. Big things I've seen in transferable skills, I'll speak to Emerson specifically, is communication. I think across the board at Emerson, students really, really stand out in terms of being able to communicate what they want to do, what they've been doing to reach those goals, and what they've been doing to network. And I'm not just saying that because I graduated from Emerson. It has definitely—
It's hard not to, but we do it anyway, yeah.
But it stands out to me. I've met with Emerson grads who I didn't go to school with, and I meet them later, and they're always a standout. So I think figure out your strengths as well. If communication's one of them, great, lean on that. If you have other strengths that you can really work on and show employers, hiring managers, that's what they want to see.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And when I think about specifically candidates coming in at the entry level, straight out of school, and kind of figuring out where exactly they want to land or what kind of careers or roles that they're interested in, I typically see a lot of the candidates showing great transferable soft skills in communication, organization, leadership, and they're getting those skills not from— they may not have a ton of like media or advertising experience or a ton of experience in the role that they're applying for, but things like coursework is I think are very important, especially at the entry level, like explaining like a big project that you work on, or, you know, working with specific teams and learning specific technical skills like Excel or PowerPoint. Those are things that hiring managers definitely look for coming in at the entry level, because those things are transferable and relatable to the role that you'll be working in. And then other things, I've seen a lot of volunteer work. So, you know, a lot of students in this time, they've been asking us like, what can we and should we be doing in this time other than like revamping our brand? Like, we kind of want some work experience. And, you know, that's kind of easier said than done. And given the circumstances of under COVID-19, and a lot of students just been expressing like, there's a lot of barriers in place, like for me to take an unpaid experience. And we understand that completely, like not all students are capable or financially stable enough to take an unpaid internship or job experience right now. So I always recommend maybe using this time to volunteer, because there's a lot of things that could come out of that experience, you know, that you could speak to. It speaks not only to your character, which a lot of hiring managers and teams and companies really look for as well. Are you team oriented? What are you passionate about? You know, giving back to your community. Those are things you could definitely speak to in the interview. And those are things that are transferable and that any person would want on their team for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a great point. Just that actually just jogged my memory a little bit. When we hire at Beacon Hill for recruiters, we always say we hire for the person, because like I can teach anyone the job, right? But we're looking at the whole package. And a lot of times that is soft skills. That's not necessarily like, you know, someone worked in one job and they can only do that. I'm looking at, did they work in a restaurant? You know, were they in hospitality? What are the sort of in between the lines kinds of things that they did on school projects? Were they in leadership roles? Just like Tyler said, you know, were they volunteering? There's a lot of stuff sort of in between the black and white on a resume that I sort of like to flesh out. And I think that goes so far for a lot of hiring leaders too. Because I mean, the person that shows up to work isn't just a resume, you know, they're the attitude, the package, the heart. And that's sometimes more important in a position.
Yeah. And I mean, it's sort of, oh, go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt somebody.
Sorry, Jessica.
No,
I just want to add that, you know, at least for media companies, production companies right now, it's really important to keep in mind that we're really not immune to everything that's happening to the economy. And so, you know, the truth is that I do think it's going to be maybe, you know, within the next year, a few months, we are going to be trying to figure out how to ramp things up again. And you know, there's going to be a lot of companies that aren't going to be hiring. But when it does come time that jobs are starting to get posted again and you start to get interviews, it's important to be open, especially at the entry level in news. You know, you have to realize that you may have spent the past 4 years at Emerson studying one thing and you may think that you are an expert, but keep in mind that you're also going up against not only all of the students around the world that are in the same position as you, but other people that are in their mid to senior career level as well that are also looking for jobs that have been laid off from their production companies.
Yeah.
So it goes back to just being open, and the hardest part is getting your foot in the door at a national network. So if there's an opening to be someone's assistant, that may not be what you have dreamed of doing as soon as you graduate, but it's a way in. And sometimes you have to do what you don't want to get to where you want to go. So, just be open, get your foot in the door with whatever position it is, and you can find ways to grow and move into jobs that more clearly align with what your dream job or your goals are. So please stay open. It's really important.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, guys. Yeah, the importance of like not freezing up, and saying like, okay, everything stops. It's like this is a great time to really explore. And like what you guys are saying, be focused about what you want, and thinking beyond that resume. That's a huge piece as well. So another part here is, you guys talked a lot about this already, about networking. It's something that, is actually part of, I would say, the Emerson brand is like networking. I think we're really good at that. But especially now, really making the time to do it, and to do it effectively, so that when, more jobs, open up, after we're in this period, those connections are already established. And so, with that question, what are questions you appreciate being asked by people when they're doing an informational interview with you, or just chatting with you, about your job? What questions do you really enjoy?
Personally, for me, I think coming prepared to an informational interview or even just a phone chat, I think that's the biggest thing. I don't necessarily look for questions that they have. I look for that they did their research on the industry, on the company, on our clients, and kind of know the full picture of what we do. Now, I can give you all of that information, but that's the stuff that I want that's going to kind of stand out compared to the 10, 15 other people that I'm chatting with. And when we kind of go back to that and do open up roles, I'll remember that you did have an understanding of Horizon Media. That we're a traditional media agency and that we're independently held. The roles that we're working on with the clients that we're doing. So not so much a question, but more an overall understanding of the industry and the role that, or the roles that we work with.
Doing that homework.
I always appreciate kind of the nitty-gritty questions. So when people ask me about how I got into staffing or how I started working with Beacon Hill, and then it leads them into more questions about what are the challenges you face day to day? What are some of the things that you had to overcome at the beginning of your career? How has that panned out now 4 or 5 years in, or whatever it is? So if you can get a little bit more specific, and this goes back to what Paul just said, but knowing the initial research of the person you're meeting with and the company that they work for, now how can you get really specific about what they do day to day to make it a really standout interview so that they remember you too?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's not just the highs, but it's what's the learning curve? What were the first challenges that you were exposed to, when you worked? And I know that those are questions that a lot of, students tend to have when it's like, okay, the real world, and what does that mean? And so yeah, that's a great example of a nitty-gritty question. So, Carla, you had mentioned something earlier about LinkedIn and reaching out effectively. And so I was just curious to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. I just feel like in the time now where we're more digitally focused than ever, like everyone's at home or working remotely and we're more kind of glued to our laptops. So I kind of feel like more people have more time in that sense to kind of reach out and respond to people more than they could have ever before. In the office, there's a lot of meetings and back-to-backs. I just think now if there is someone that you've always wanted to reach out to, they're more prone to kind of open your LinkedIn messages and get back to you and probably set up a virtual coffee chat or something like that along those lines if you want to connect with them. But specifically for me, I know that I get a ton of LinkedIn messages a day, but the messages that I definitely I'm very impressed by are the ones who've kind of shown me that they did their research coming into that. They show me that they definitely have took the extra steps to do their homework. They know specifically my role in the company and specifically what is it that they're aligned with. Like they've done the research on the various departments. They know specifically kind of like the approach to what it takes to land a job in the industry, but kind of just want to set up some time for me now to kind of talk through what that would look like. So even adding on to your question that everyone answered, I think really greatly. That's really great advice. I would say something I'm really impressed by if students are asking me questions about opportunity for growth in their role, because that shows me that they don't want to just stay stagnant in a role. They want to kind of grow and climb up the ladder, and and take advantage of all the opportunities the agency or the role has to offer to help them get to the next step and advance in their careers. So I'm always impressed when candidates, especially students coming in for their first jobs out of schools, they're definitely eager in that sense that they want to know, what can I do to get to the next step? This is just my foot in the door, and I want to learn and grow as much in this role, but my goal is definitely here, and I want to know what it takes to get there.
Yeah, that's that reflection of that growth mindset. I've been hearing that phrase a lot more, and that speaks to that. They're not just saying I have a growth mindset. They're asking you, what are ways to grow. And I think too, there's always that random LinkedIn invitation from someone that you have no mutual connections with. You're not in the same field, and it's just sort of like, why, And so having that why as to why they're reaching out is really important. So awesome. Thank you. Okay, so this is sort of I guess a crystal ball question. And again, some of you guys have touched on this already, is what are some questions that an employer might ask in an interview a year from now, 6 months from now, in light of COVID-19? What are some interview questions that might come up, or how they might be phrased a little differently than how you might have asked them a year ago? I know, kind of a loaded question. I know none of you are psychic, but just throwing it out.
I kind of have danced around this a little bit, or mentioned it in some of our answers, but I think the number one question people are going to ask is, how did you spend your time? As hiring managers, we know it's not easy to land any job during this time. So I don't think people are going to be expecting to see that on a resume. They know there's going to be a gap, but how did you utilize that time? And I just want to shout out, I think it was Paul who originally said volunteering, or mentioned volunteering. And I think that's the number one thing I'll be looking for. If you have the space and capacity to do so, that's a great way to utilize your time and really makes you a standout candidate.
Yeah. One thing I just thought of that, I don't know if it's like this is a crystal ball answer, actually. I don't know if this will come into play, but before COVID, I did meet a lot of candidates who had sort of off the cuff mentioned how good they were working remotely. It was actually built into their resume. They would say, worked remotely for this, SVP. I managed all of his calendars. Here's what I did for him. Here's the software that was attached to that. Okay. That might be something more valuable now, because I wasn't used to seeing it before, like work remotely, parentheses, but showing your proficiency and your almost like technical prowess in that regard might become a little bit of a boon on your resume.
Definitely. Great. Other futuristic thoughts? It's definitely a loaded question, but no, I think that remote piece is huge about the software, what you use, like definitely something that even for us, in our roles at the Career Development Center, we've spent more time on Zoom than we have before. So this is my last question, and then I just want to open up time. I know students probably have questions. What's one piece of advice that you think is missing out there, or something that you always drive home to job seekers right now?
I can start there, because this is advice that I got as I was coming out of college and looking for my first job. And I don't think it's emphasized enough, is just as much as the employer is interviewing you, you should also be interviewing the employer. So you really utilizing this time to do your research and creating like a plan A, B, C, D. COVID-19 has proven to us we don't know what the future looks like, so kind of just map out a plan that works best for you, and using this time to do the research on industries and companies that you're interested in, and seeing how they're navigating through this COVID-19 and these uncharted and uncertain times, seeing how they're treating their employees. Those are very important things that you should look at as you are looking for your employers. Because there's some place that you're going to be working full time, 40 plus hours a week. You definitely want to, I would hope you want to work in an environment that really cares about their employees and, create that fostering atmosphere and environment that is supportive and quintessential to your role and your job function. Because, you know, as Shannon mentioned earlier, it's not just like your resume or piece of paper, it's your added value that you can bring to the agency and the team. Those are all qualities that are important as you are job searching.
Got it, yeah.
I think that it's important to realize that when you do virtual interviews or even in-person interviews, when it gets back to doing that, or when we all get back to doing that, it's always going to be an exchange. It's not just about, this is my dream company, this is what I want from this company. I know that I can grow and become an on-air correspondent or whatever your dream job is, but you have to realize that you know, they want a team player. They want to know that no matter the job, you know, no matter what the job is, whether it's a big job responsibility or a small one, they want to know that you're going to take it, you're going to do it, especially during this time. So you really just want to be conscious of, what does this company need and how can I provide that to you guys? You know, really make it about them, but also, you know, don't forget about yourself and what your next steps are, what your goals are. But, you know, just to get your foot in the door, you really do have to be cognizant of, what is it that you guys need? Because I know that my skill set can transfer and I can do this for you guys, because those are the people that employers, hiring managers are going to want. They're going to want that person that they know they can call on, they know is reliable.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind and know that it is definitely an exchange, and they're the ones leading the interview. And as great as you think you are, know that there are thousands of other candidates out there that also think that they're great, but that you're also competing against. So also be sure to stay humble. And then, like, just my last 3 steps for everybody is to definitely, you know, take advantage of virtual interviews, virtual networking sessions, meet as many possible people as you can, and do all the informationals that you possibly can. For people that are looking to get into news, you know, look for ways to keep your writing and your video samples fresh and up to date. I know that I'm going to be asking people, how did you keep, you know, up to date with what's going on in the news? And do you have examples of some pieces that you've written? And, you know, some people don't have access to computers at home. Hopefully they have access to television, or they have some way to stay up to date with what's going on. And all it takes is a pen and paper to put together an article. And so you can use these samples once the job market opens up again to say, these are my pieces. These are some fresh samples that I've done that sort of showcase my skill set. And the more writing you do, the better you become at it. And then my last one is, you guys mentioned this about volunteering. See if you can volunteer at your local campus, you know, station or newspaper, or even your local newspaper in your town. Create a YouTube channel, create your own blog if you can. You know, just find ways to be creative, because when it does come to an interview, you definitely want to have some kind of a prepared answer on, how did you spend this time? Well, you know, I spent it doing this. And, you know, some people might say something like, I had to take care of my mother or my grandmother or whatever during this time. But I, you know, was able to take a little bit of time to get better at this skill set. So just make sure you have some answer set.
Yeah, great.
That's actually kind of a nice segue. The advice I always give candidates is to practice interviewing. It is not natural. It's not something we do every single day, but it's really important to get clear about, you know, those typical interview questions, like what are your strengths and weaknesses? It's important to get clear about your transitions from one job to the next. Also remember that jobs like hospitality are just as valuable, because you're learning things like time management, communication, working with different personalities. So how can you give the person interviewing you a really clear, I guess, story or structure of what you've learned throughout your work experiences, no matter if that's an internship or a part-time job? Give them specific examples.
Yeah.
And to quickly add on to Nora's point, I would say to even get in the practice of virtually interviewing. As you know, this has become our new norm. In-person interview is definitely different from interviewing virtually. So what does that look like for you? You know, a lot of nerves come through videoing and the capabilities. So thinking about what your background will look like, what are you going to be wearing? How are you going to, your posture, your body language, things like that are definitely hard to communicate virtually. So getting in the habit of practicing those things now, I think it's definitely help you up to success in the long run.
Paul or Shannon, any nuggets of advice that that you guys like to share?
Yeah, I think everyone kind of hit the nail on the head, especially Nora, kind of practicing those interview questions, but also understanding what the job description says and what the job is so that you can make those transferable skills relevant to the role. So you do have the skills, whether it was working in retail or working at a restaurant or whatever it may be, you do have those transferable skills. It's how do you make them align to a media focused role or a strategy focused role, because they're there, but we're looking for how you're translating that.
Yeah. So not just the homework for the networking, but read that job description, read through it carefully. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I also think, and I think everyone in some way touched on this, but put yourself in the employer's shoes. I do tend to feel like, and when you've been searching for a while, it does put a little bit of that me, I'm looking for a job, here's what I need. And you should keep that in mind. But it is, the interview is totally a two-way street. And I think making sure that you're creating a little bit of a dialogue and giving them enough to go off of, and kind of not just, I feel like sometimes, and I used to be like this. I used to interview kind of flat. I would have an answer and that's the answer that I wanted, but I forgot that there's a volley, and I should ask them questions. What are, what is a typical day like? Who am I reporting to? What does the actual position look like? Versus kind of just the macro job, because I feel like we tend to be attracted to titles, but what is it going to be like to actually physically be in this role? And will I enjoy it? Will certain parts of it be difficult? Will it be like good difficult? Are these challenges that I want to overcome? I feel like I appreciate when candidates ask me questions like that about a job. That shows they care about what it's like to be in the role, like a day to day versus where am I going to be with this job in 5 years? Who knows, So I always found that to be kind of an interesting point.
Great. Well, thanks so much, guys. Thank you. I want to turn it over to some questions. I think I see a few popping up in the screen, so bear with me here.
Sure. Yeah, actually, I can read off some of these.
Okay. Thanks, Anders.
Yeah, no problem. So we have about 5 questions that have come through. And just to kick things off, this question comes from Olya Avaral, who was one of our women of Emerson in the past. She says, thanks for doing this webinar. How do you think this process will affect internationals? Do you think it will be harder for international residents to find jobs at this time?
I think it's definitely going to be a little bit more challenging. I think that international students already face a barrier when it comes to landing a job here, because Viacom CBS, for example, certain departments, we do not hire candidates unless we have something called E-Verify, which allows international students who aren't citizens to work at, our company. So I don't know what this pandemic and how it's going to affect that. I definitely, I just know that it is going to be an added challenge, and it's definitely something that you guys need to be prepared for. And what you can be doing in the meantime is, and this is not just for international students, but typically I would not really push for grad school, but I think that there is going to be a good chunk of time where companies are not hiring. And so you need to think about, how can I not be idle, and what can I do to strengthen my skill set, to prepare for that time in which companies do open back up again. And also look into a lot of digital companies. This is also the time to, consider other jobs outside of the majors that you guys have spent the last 4 years studying. And you just need to be open to any and everything at this time. And the most important thing is just to not be idle. It's okay to take a year or so off, not studying or working in journalism, just to find a means to an end, to make sure that you survive for the next couple of months, to provide for your families, whatever it is that you need to do, just make sure that you're not being idle. I think that's the most important part. But yes, it is going to be an added challenge, I think, but just make sure you're staying active in some way.
Excellent. Our next question comes from Kayla Martin. And she is asking, should I put other experience such as restaurant work on my professional resume, or should I discuss this in a possible interview if I get to that round?
can take this one. I love this question. I always say yes, yes, yes. Put your restaurant experience. That's one thing that I look for. Usually it kind of connotes like a lovely hospitality personality meant for a lot of, or kind of built for a lot of transferable industries and skill sets. I do think that, you know, shameless plug for working with a staffing firm, if you build a relationship with your recruiter, you guys can have that discussion in the beginning and sort of figure out, if I put my restaurant experience, is it the best fit for these types of industries that I want to work in? Or I want this one job, or should I put all of this on there? I think that's a very good thing to sort of talk to your recruiter about. But in a lot of cases, I do think I mean, people that work in restaurants are quick on their feet, can quickly connect with anyone, great with people, fast thinking. I mean, it's, you know, these are all kind of things that I'm sure any employer would want in any of their positions. So I definitely think it's a yes, but definitely making it more about building that relationship with a recruiter to figure out if it's going to get you a certain place. Sure, but down the line, I think that's smart.
I agree. The only thing I'll add on to that, if you're worried about spacing it all on your resume and trying to keep it to one page, especially just graduating, maybe you have your work experience, so internship experience, and then an additional experience section where you maybe just list out the restaurant that you worked for, your title, and the dates that you were there, not necessarily bullet points. So just an alternative way to still list it on your resume.
Excellent, thank you. Our next question comes from Anthony Monzon, who writes, "It's great to hear from you all. Anthony graduated in 2016 with a degree in journalism, so this is a two-part question for Muna specifically. Anthony would love to hear more about how hiring within journalism specifically has been affected by the pandemic. And secondly, after graduation, Anthony worked at NBC Boston as a producer for a year before needing to return home for a sick relative. He started at a creative agency, which has been running for the past 3 years, but he's looking to re-enter journalism full time. And he's wondering if his resume may be less attractive to employers in the news industry because of that work in marketing."
Okay. Hi, Anthony. I know that I'll answer your second question first. Anthony, I know, was very involved on campus with EIV and WEBN and Emerson channel. I think it's okay to have two resumes. This kind of goes to the last question as well. I think if you're going for a journalism, media, TV related job, you have one resume with all of that experience, and it's okay to list, you know, your previous on-campus work, even though you graduated a few years ago. I would just maybe add, you know, something current that you've been doing that's related to journalism. So this is where you know, you got to get creative and, you know, think about, should I start my own blog? Should I start out a YouTube channel? And include that on your journalism resume, and then have another resume that includes all of your marketing, you know, miscellaneous jobs that you may have had, whether you were, you know, working in a restaurant or what have you, because at the end of the day, all of those skills can be transferable to working inside of a newsroom. It's definitely not going to make you less attractive. There's tons of people that I've, you know, come across that have left the journalism industry for X amount of months, years, whatever, to do what they needed to do for their personal lives, and then are now looking to get back into the world of journalism. So it does not make you less attractive at all. I would just consider having two separate resumes for that, and then bring them both to the interview, and make sure you offer it up, and the hiring manager will let you know if they want it or not, but it'll also let them know this person wasn't just being idle. They were staying busy. They were just, you know, exploring another field. And your other question about how media companies have been affected during the pandemic, we've all been affected. I think I've been on LinkedIn to see what jobs have been posted by what companies. NBC Universal seems to have been posting a lot of jobs recently. CBS right now is not posting any jobs. Fox is posting some openings. Nexstar, Scripps, they have a lot of openings. you just keep in mind that we're not immune to what's going on. We haven't even been in the newsroom ourselves for the last, I think it's been 2 months now that CBS employees haven't been in the actual CBS building. We're all working remotely, and we've assembled a task force that every day is working hard to try and figure out how do we get our own employees back in the building. So I don't want to say it's the last thing on our mind about, you know, how do we get new people in, but just keep in mind that we are all going through this together, and we're trying to first figure out, you know, how do we continue to keep our journalists safe, because we are putting broadcasts on air every single day, and we do have crews out on the field. So the number one priority is keeping our staff and our journalists, our producers safe. Two, you know, we need to make sure that we're still reporting factual news and we're, you know, keeping things up to date for our viewers. And then three, we are trying to figure out how do we get our employees back in the building. And then we're going to start looking at, all right, you know, what positions do we have available? Who can we bring on? So just keep all of that in mind, that it's a little bit further down the priority list right now for a lot of media companies. And, you know, we're all trying to just figure this thing out day by day, and we don't have the answers, but we've all certainly been affected for sure.
Awesome, thank you. We have another question. This one comes from Jack. He's asking, how do you recommend keeping in contact with a recruiter during a time period like this where there are so many hiring holds?
I can answer. At least for agency recruiters right now, I think touching base every 2 weeks is probably plenty, just since there is not a lot going on with our clients, since most jobs are on hold or the process is just taking a little bit longer. So know that as a recruiter, if you've built a relationship with that person in an agency recruiting sense anyway, they have you in mind and they will be in touch with opportunities that are appropriate for your skill set and also what you're looking for. Goes back to what Shannon was saying about matchmaking. So we will absolutely be in touch with opportunities as they come in. It's just quiet right now. So shooting an email every 2 weeks is probably an appropriate amount of time to touch base with people.
For the more in-house roles, I think it's just obviously following up, sending your resume, making it known that you're interested in having those informational conversations, but also making sure that you're following our LinkedIn, our Instagram pages, all of our social networks and our website, because that's where we're going to post when we open up roles again. That's going to be the first place we go to. So I think keeping an eye on the companies or setting alerts for companies that you're super interested in, so that when the roles do open, you'll get an email or a ping or whatever it may be.
Awesome, thank you. This next question comes from Jade, and Jade is asking, thank you so much for doing this seminar. This question is mostly for Tyler. You mentioned that coursework is a way of displaying skills. Where is it appropriate to display coursework skills / related projects? For instance, is it appropriate to list a specific course on a resume or to link to the final project you created in a course on LinkedIn or in a portfolio?
Hey, great question. I definitely think, a lot of panelists mentioned today, having multiple resumes and speaking to those experiences. I think this is one of those cases as well. I definitely would recommend, if it's professionally relevant, to include those coursework on your resume for sure. I definitely took advantage of that. There were a lot of business courses that I took in my undergrad experience that were related to my first role out of college. I definitely was able to kind of speak to that in high volume of just the specific projects and teamwork and organizational skills required to do really well on that project was definitely transferable skills that are relevant to the role I was applying for. So I think when you have a clear sense of the job function after you reread the job function and think about your coursework that you've taken in your undergrad experience, you'll have a better sense of just things that are relevant to put on your resume versus those are not. So, specifically if you are applying to a specific marketing position, but you don't have that much marketing work experience, but you've taken a ton of marketing classes, that's an instance there I definitely recommend highlighting out your resume because those skills are relevant. And in general, I would recommend speaking on any courses that are even outside the realm of a specific function that you're applying for, because again, we're open to experiences and every experience is an experience. So definitely don't sell yourself short in that light. Sorry, I'm talking in circles here, but definitely would recommend including those experiences as much as you can and speaking on them. I think it's easier to speak on them than list them as well. So I think coursework, especially on your resume, those are, again, highlighting those soft skills. But when you get in an interview now as NREF, where you're going to be seeing more of those hard and technical skills shine. So those things could help lead and segue those conversations in an interview room.
Awesome, thank you. We have another question. This one comes from Noah, and Noah is saying, thank you for doing this. I was just at Emerson's Los Angeles campus, and now I am back home on the East Coast. Lots of Emersonians and people in LA specifically have said that it's a lot easier for employers to see an LA address when applying to a job. When it comes to applying, how should I go about this process?
I think I know what you're asking, but if this isn't the answer to the question you're asking, please do clarify. If you're job searching for somewhere where you're not currently living, it is much easier to get exposure if you put an address where that job is on your resume. So if you're looking in LA and you're not currently located there, maybe you don't list an address, but when speaking to the recruiting manager, let them know you can quickly move out to LA and here's your plan for how. Or, you know, if you're planning to move back to New York because that's where your family is, letting the recruiter or the hiring manager know your timeline. So it is much easier to get exposure if you're actually currently located in the city that you're job searching in. Otherwise, maybe omitting the address for now is best.
Excellent, thank you. We have a couple other questions. This one is it worth reaching out to a staffing agency at this time? For someone who is interested in temp work, how do you think people should go about that right now?
You could literally call the staffing firm. I love that. Honestly, there's a really good chance that we'll find you if you've put a resume out there somewhere. I think just being active on the job boards, being active on LinkedIn, if you're properly utilizing your network and just kind of being fearless about it, I'm sure someone will call you. One thing to note too is whether or not it's worth it to reach out right now. I mean, we obviously have definitely fewer jobs than we usually did. I do think there is kind of a soft skills element to it, like reaching out for consultative purposes to a recruiter and just having an ear into an industry or a market. That's really nice. A lot of people, they know that I can't immediately whip them up a job tomorrow, but just having me on the other end of the phone, walking them through what things look like, what are some things they can do in the interim, what are some YouTubes they can go on to learn how to, you know, use Excel. I mean, I think it's really nice to feel, especially like right now in this environment, to feel like you have options and resources. So there's so much more beyond a staffing firm than just finding you a position right away. I think it's nice to just kind of use them as an overall resource. I mean, Nora mentioned it before, practicing interviewing, great thing to do with a recruiter, have them run through a list of questions with you. Absolutely. So those are definitely some things you think about.
So I think we're a little over time, so I just want to be cognizant of that. So I know, Andrew, you said there was another question.
Yep, there's just one more question in the queue here. And this one just comes from Kayla again, who is asking, how do I answer the question of what I see myself doing in 10 years? Kayla is specifically interested in field reporting. She just graduated and she's not sure what she might be doing in 10 years. Oops, sorry, we're gonna, yeah, there you go.
Okay. I think that, you know, you should have an idea. It doesn't need to be, you know, totally accurate. The recruiter is not going to hold you to your answer in that moment 10 years from now. But it's important that you do think about that and have some kind of an answer prepared because, you know, recruiters and hiring managers, we look for most often people that are forward thinkers. If you don't know what it is that you see yourself doing in 10 years, how are we going to know how you will best fit within this company? Usually, or most likely, when we are hiring or are interviewing folks, we want people that are going to want to be with us long term and aren't just looking to work at our company, get some experience, put it down on their resume, and then leave to the next. So it gives us an idea as recruiters when we ask that question, how does this person fit within our company and our team right now? Is this someone that's going to leave after a couple of months? Because it is an investment on our part when we hire people. This is for every company, keep that in mind. And so they're asking you that question because they want to know, do you want to be with us long term, or are you just going to sort of use this for your own benefit and then leave?
Great. Well, this was wonderful. This was great. I guess a couple of things I just wanted to wrap things up to remind students, now alumni, about is EC20 Career Launch. The topic of focus and transferable skills. We addressed a lot of that in the Canvas course, and there is a section in there on virtual interviewing. So you guys gave a lot of helpful advice about setting up your space and how do you prepare, and so that's in EC20 Career Launch also. But I also definitely want to thank our panelists this afternoon. Thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your insights. And of course, we look forward to more collaboration with you guys in the future in real life, not online. But thank you. This was great. All right.